With Sonic X Shattered Generations releasing this year, it's really never been a better time to be a Sonic fan. I mean, just the past few years alone, we've gotten Sonic Frontiers, the Sonic movie franchise, and of course the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. They did what? Well, if he's truly dead, then I guess the only way to honor his legacy is to look back on the first game and see if it holds up today. Spoiler alert, it fucking doesn't. I want you to think about the first Sonic game that you ever played. For me, it was Sonic Heroes. Now, if you ask me what I think about Sonic Heroes nowadays, I'd probably have words so harsh they could be put on a list somewhere. But back when I was a kid, man, Sonic Heroes was the greatest game ever made to me. The 3 character dynamic, the level environments, the soundtrack, the boss battles, Big the Cat. In all seriousness, Sonic Heroes being my introduction to Sonic made me learn 2 things about the franchise. All the games have absolutely incredible music, and Sonic games are about going fast. Now that I've established what my first Sonic game was and what it taught me, let's talk about the massive whiplash I got from playing the very first game in the series. Picture this. The year is 2008. One winter day, your mom brings home a Nintendo Wii, a copy of Wii Sports, and Super Mario Galaxy, and your family spends the entire day playing those games to death. Your mom decides to test the console's internet functionality by going to the Wii Shop channel. And here we were introduced to the biggest deal we'd ever seen in gaming, the Virtual Console. It's like right up there with putting a man on the moon and curing polio. The Virtual Console was the greatest thing humanity ever achieved. A digital way to buy games from old consoles. Well, that's commonplace nowadays. In fact, it's kind of expected for each console to have this in some capacity. It can't be understated how big a deal this was way back then. And keep in mind, I was 7 years old back in 2008. I didn't even know what taxes were, but even I could appreciate how big a deal the Virtual Console was. My mom bought a ton of games for her childhood, namely Super Mario Bros. 3, Double Dragon, and Punch-Out! But there was one more game she bought, one that, regardless if she knew it or not, would send her middle child down a path to having a good taste in music and a bad taste in just about everything else. Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis. Yeah, the Wii Virtual Console was the first way I ever played this game. We had Sonic Mega Collection for the PS2 as well, but I kid you not, I think most of my time in that collection was spent playing Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. So I could thank Sonic Mega Collection for giving me this strange addiction. I've been doing this all day, it's just not the same. I did play Sonic 2 or 3 occasionally, but I just never had any desire to play the first one. It wasn't like I was deprived of options to play Sonic 1 or anything. I just never did until the Wii. And play that game I did. I got through Green Hill Zone, played up to Act 3 of Marble Zone, got frustrated, quit and played Wii Sports. I knew even back then as a kid that Marble Zone, compared to Green Hill Zone, just wasn't fun. And that was pretty much my entire experience with Sonic 1 for the longest time. I played quite a few other games in the series since, namely Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Colors, the Advance and Rush games, almost all the racing games in the series. But I wouldn't revisit the classic games until I hit high school and was given a laptop. It was here I discovered the power of emulation. Before you call the cops, I already did, they didn't care. Me and my friends used to huddle around during free period and play Super Smash Bros. And Mario Kart and all kinds of fun multiplayer games. But I also got all kinds of single player games for all kinds of systems to play. And one such system was the Sega Genesis and, you guessed it, Sonic the Hedgehog. I decided to finally tackle this elusive game that I just couldn't beat during my childhood. I'd grown quite a bit since 2008. I had like 5% more facial hair at this point. There was nothing I couldn't get through. I played it, I beat it, and it was just okay. That was back in 2018 when I beat it for the first time. And while I've played it a few times since, I almost never play it to completion in one sitting. But that won't do. Sonic is fucking dead, and until they find his killer, I'm gonna honor him the only way I know how. Let's take a look at Sonic the Hedgehog 1. The game's story is about as simple as they come. Dr. Robotnik has kidnapped all the animals of the forest to power his machines. As Sonic, you have to stop them. Short, sweet, to the point. Stories and platformers for the time were always simple, but that is doubly true for Sonic 1. Anyway, we start the game in the Alpha and Omega, Green Hill Zone. There isn't much I can say about this level that hasn't already been said, so instead I'll just jump straight into the gameplay. Let's press down and jump and do a spin dash. Where's the spin dash? Okay, so there's no spin dash in this game. Fuck it, let's talk about Green Hill Zone, I have time. Green Hill Zone is the first level of Sonic 1, and despite it coming out over 30 years ago, this stage is still a blast to play through. It does a great job teaching you about everything Sonic brought to the table. The layout of the level isn't quite straight lines, which was not only a massive contrast to every 2D platformer that came before it, but it also meant the game could have physics. Walk up a ramp too slowly and Sonic can't quite make it to the top. Press down on the D-pad and Sonic rolls into a ball. Roll down a hill and gain a lot more momentum. Jump into an enemy and it makes this loud pop sound. Break open a monitor and it makes the exact same sound. That teaches you that Sonic can attack as long as he's curled into a ball, and that he can attack things from all sides as long as he's in said ball. And the further you get into the game, Green Hill Zone just keeps being fun. This level is so good it almost makes you stop wondering why Sonic is fucking blue. Eventually you reach this tunnel that forces you into a ball. You roll through it at the speed of sound and get forced out the other side, flying high into the air. This right here is what Sonic most notably added to gaming: spectacle. You know how in modern games, there's moments that take control away from the player to show you something really cool yet automated? That's a trend that can trace its roots all the way back to Sonic 1. So he's to blame for The Last of Us, huh? You get to Act 3 and reach the first boss. Man, this music is intimidating. I wonder how difficult it'll be. Boss fight's over. Green Hill Zone is a great first stage, and it showcases absolutely everything that made Sonic fun. The showcase of the game's physics, the bright and colorful graphics and detailed background, the catchy music, the lame boss fight, it sets the stage for everything in store for this mascot of the 90s. And if it ended right there, I could easily call this one of the greatest games of all time. Damn it. Okay, let's do this. Marble Zone is the worst second zone in Sonic 1 that's ever existed. Take all the praise I had about Green Hill Zone and just obliterate it. The reason that zone was so fun is it emphasized Sonic's strengths, physics, and momentum. Let's focus on that word momentum for a second. There's this misconception with Sonic that his games are all about speed, going 100% fast 100% of the time. But think of it this way. Let's imagine that in Super Mario World you get the Invincibility star, and you just keep it forever. That would completely invalidate how rewarding it's supposed to be to get it. Apply that same logic with Sonic and speed. If Sonic is going at Mach 5 24/7, doesn't that kinda just take out the fun of going fast in the first place? Sonic games are not about speed, they're about skill mastery and momentum. The difference between speed and momentum being that with momentum, you may not be going blazing fast at every given moment, but using your memory of the level design, you can get through obstacles and enemies as quickly as you can, never slowing down due to your own skill, keeping up the momentum of the game. Now, the reason why Marble Zone sucks so much isn't because you can't go fast. I mean, that's part of it. But the reason you can't go fast is because the game just makes you wait. Wait for these pillars to lower. Wait for these pillars to lower. Wait for this slow-ass block to take you over this lava. Wait for the cyanide to kick in. This level is just a giant waiting game, and it's the epitome of not fun. I felt the same way as a kid, and back then I couldn't even make it to Act 3. Not even because of the difficulty, but because I just didn't have the patience for it. Marble Zone, above all else, is a test of patience. Anyway, you slog through this level, get to the boss, hit him a few times, and thus ends Marble Zone. Thank God. Next is Spring Yard Zone, and I don't have much to say about it other than it's more fun than Marble Zone. It's a bit of a halfway between Green Hill and Marble Zone, as there's plenty of moments where you have to wait, but on the other hand there's springs to fling you high into the air, giving you some vertical speed sections. I actually like this zone. It's a nice change of pace after Marble Zone gave me a taste of what arthritis is like. What really sells it for me is the music. Green Hill and Marble Zone's music sound like typical video game music, but for the next few games, Sonic's musical identity would be identified by an offshoot of hip-hop, New Jack Swing. Thank Tevin Campbell or Bobby Brown. And speaking of Bobby Brown, this level's pretty fun, but my problem with it and the game as a whole is it just looks so boring. Dark colors and bland backgrounds persist in every level that isn't Green Hill Zone. When the game was being developed, Sega really wanted to make a great first impression with this new mascot, so Green Hill Zone got the bulk of their focus. And my god does it show, because the rest of the levels in this game, Spring Yard included, just feel undercooked in comparison to the first level, at least visually. Regardless, I think Spring Yard manages to be a standout level in Sonic 1. We get to the boss, it's incredibly easy. Next up is... Why? It was almost video game law back in the day that if you had a game, you needed a water level. Sonic continues this trend with Labyrinth Zone, but the difference here is in other games, water levels have swimming to justify it being, underwater. But in Sonic 1, you're literally just playing a slower version of the level. Sonic can't swim at all, and because the entire level is coated with this underwater layer, the game slows down to a crawl. So you just wind up very slowly and very tediously, avoiding spikes and enemies, and on top of that you can drown. I never did in this level, because despite all the frustration of the controls, Labyrinth Zone is actually incredibly easy, which just adds to the tedium of it all. But then Act 3 happens. It opens with this never-ending slide unless you jump to the side and hit a button. It's extremely easy to wrap your head around, but my god, the controls when you're on this slide are so atrocious. It feels damn near impossible to jump off properly. So you just fall down this tunnel over and over and over again, and it just makes you feel like a fucking idiot. And the worst part is the checkpoints in Act 3 are so infrequent that even if you get past it and die, you get sent back here, and you have to do it all over again, son of a bitch! Anyway, you get to the boss and... that was considered a boss? Seriously, you just chase Robotnik up this tunnel and he... leaves? Whatever. Next is Starlight Zone. And aside from the boring color palette, this level is fantastic. Like actually, right after Green Hill Zone, this is the best level in the entire game in my opinion. The calming music really matches the atmosphere here, with this level taking place on a starry night.
There's a lot of slopes and places where you get to really blaze through the level, and it's just a lot of fun. I don't have much else to say here. It's just great stuff. Now on to the final main stage, and it's this is Scrap Brain Zone, and it's easily the worst level in the entire game. You ever heard of the phrase beginner's trap? It's anything in a game that's unavoidable to newcomers, as there's no way you could possibly avoid it unless you know what's coming up. That's this level. Scrap Brain Zone is beginner's trap incarnate. The floor falls beneath you the frame you step on it. These electric buzzing things don't make it obvious they harm you until it's too late. These platforms disappear way too quickly. This section right here is going on the diagnosis paper for the ulcer in my stomach, and it's just this frustrating the entire way through. Act 2 isn't as bad. I got all the way through without dying at all, but there's these buzz saws and parts where you can get crushed, and it's like, I get it. Final levels should be the most challenging, but they should also be fair. And man, this just ain't fair. Act 3. Oh my god. Listen, let me tell you what I'm about to say. Fuck this. This entire act is coated in water. And remember when I said that Labyrinth Zone is tedious, but not exactly difficult? Well, Sega must have heard me say that, because this act is unfairly difficult. It's the longest level in the game. The entire damn thing is underwater. There's beginner's traps oozing out of every crevice, not enough air bubbles to keep you alive. Like, look here. This is the one and only time I drown in the entire game, and it's because this air bubble just wouldn't show up. This level is easily my least favorite in the entire game. Luckily, there's a much quicker route to take if you run under this platform in the beginning of the level. But guess who didn't learn that until literally just now? Anyway, we're taken to Final Zone, which has to be the most unoriginal level name I've ever seen. Fight the easiest final boss fight in 16-bit history, and that's Sonic 1. If you can't tell, I don't exactly have the highest praise for this game. I think only 3 out of the 6 levels in the game are fun, and the rest of them are boring at best, and so frustrating they make me want to bite down on a live grenade at worst. When you get down to it, this game is actually incredibly short. It only took me about 2 hours to finish the entire thing. There is something you can do for a bit of extra content. Get to the end of each level with 50 rings, and you can jump through a giant ring to be taken to a special stage. My opinion of these isn't exactly unpopular, but I'll share it anyway. Do not do these. Your reward for getting through this LSD hellscape of a special stage is one of only 6 Chaos Emeralds in this game, and unlike future games which reward you with Supersonic for doing this game gives you absolutely nothing. Okay, that's a bit of a lie. You do get a slightly different ending. And by slightly, I mean this time flowers grow. I mean, that saves the game right there. But yeah, I don't think going through these special stages is worth it. It's not like they're terrible or anything. I mean, the controls aren't the best, but they're serviceable. It's just the reward you get for doing them is such a nothing reward. Especially given that if you just absolutely need to see the alternate ending, you could just look it up on YouTube or something. Now, that's not the game's fault, and to be fair, back in 1991 that wasn't even possible. My point is that if you're gonna make the 100% reward an alternate ending, you could at the very least make that ending worthwhile. Just having flowers be the only difference isn't worth it in my opinion. Overall, while I think Sonic 1 is a good game, and I can definitely see why he was able to become a titan in the industry and compete with 8-bit platformers, I think this first game is the definition of aging poorly, and especially considering this game's main competition was Super Mario World. That game was amazing, and is not only the objectively better game between the two, but is also just one of the best games ever made. Whereas Sonic 1 is just alright for what it is, and a necessary first step in the franchise, but man, it's just not that great nowadays. If you absolutely have to play Sonic 1, I would not recommend the Genesis original. If you have to play this game, I would recommend either the mobile port by Christian Whitehead or the version in Sonic Origins. I know Sonic Origins has problems or whatever, but you can use the spin dash and also the drop dash from Sonic Mania. And it has new animated cutscenes that bridge each zone together. Either way, you're better off with either of those than the original game.
Well, I hope me talking shit about Sonic 1 was enough to honor his legacy. I just can't believe he's really dead. Wait. Guys, look! The rumors are false! Sonic isn't really dead after all! But I wish he was!